Good morning and welcome to Hanratty on Karate. I was just sitting here thinking and having a look at some of my books, and got a load of books on karate, of course. And I was reading a book by Herman Bayer, who's a PhD and a Shorin-ryu master. And he postulates that there are basically three different kinds of karate that we have now. We have sport karate, of course, which is very big. We have karate-do, which is basically based on the character improvement or perfection, if you like, if you go for the Japanese style. And then you have karate-jitsu. And the unfortunate thing, as Mr. Bayer points out, is that they're all called karate. There's not a real difference. And as my wife was pointing out to me last week, basically, she said I was complaining about some of the attitudes of the students I was teaching, not giving as much as I want them to give, which they never do. But, sometimes I complain about it, sometimes I go, screw it. But anyway, she just said, you have to realize you're a dying breed. And maybe I am, because I started off my karate when you had to really fight for your gradings, fight for your position, and achieve status in the club. No matter what grade you are, your status was basically on how serious you were about your training, how much you put into it, what your capabilities are, and what your abilities are, of course. Now, some people were very gifted and some people weren't. That didn't mean to say that the people who weren't that gifted weren't able to try as hard, if not harder, than the people who were gifted. So this got me thinking, Mr. Bayer's book got me thinking about the original karate-jitsu. And now it's a shame that we don't have these three probably definite karate divisions called something else. It's pretty poor. For example, if you do jiu-jitsu, it's not the same as doing judo. And judo, of course, is the milder form of jiu-jitsu. And it's the same with a lot of things where they're quite definitely named different. I mean, I don't think sport karate bears any resemblance to karate-jitsu. Bears about as much resemblance as modern-day javelin throwing does to, say, Spartans throwing javelins at the Persians at the Thermopylae battle. So karate-jitsu is really reckoned to be by many, many people and practitioners to be the original form of karate, in that it's pretty deadly and it's used for self-defense, and it wasn't taught in its entirety, or wasn't passed on in its entirety by any one master completely. And so what happened was the student, probably uchideshi, which means living student, learned as much as he can and then developed his own ideas, which goes on to the modern concept of where we learn our basics exactly, and then we start to blend them more towards our body styles, and then eventually we go out and form our own ideas. The term we use is shuhari, and if you look up shuhari, it's quite an interesting concept, and it's constantly evolving. We probably don't need the original deadly karate-jitsu. However, it's interesting to learn of it. But what it does come out, there was definitely masters of this. And then I started to think about masters and who's really a master. And there's lots of people call themselves karate masters, even grandmasters and supreme grandmasters, and which I basically laugh at, because, to be honest, when you've learned a skill, you start to look at how you can utilize that skill and move on from that. There's such a thing in the business world as the redundancy of skills. In other words, you learn something and then you actually utilize that something to move on to something new. And it gives you a base to stand on. It's kind of like going up a ladder. But the first step then becomes redundant. So looking at the so-called mastery of karate is laughable, especially in sport karate, which is basically, who's the most gifted, flexible, and maybe got the best fast twitch muscle fiber. I know when I was coaching, and I coached for a long time, different teams on provincial level, national level, and international level, I would look for people with really good fast twitch muscle fiber, a good sense of timing, and of course having a good basic background where they could utilize basic techniques in a semi-realistic situation. I say semi-realistic because, of course, competition isn't realistic. First competition karate, I believe, was in Waseda University about 1950s. And after that, you kind of got the Shotokanization of karate, or the Japanization of karate, with the JKA and their great marketing ability put out Shotokan Karate Do, which is, one of the branches. You have karate-jitsu, karate-do, and sport karate. And as I say, unfortunately, they're all called karate, which is quite confusing. A lot of people say, we do traditional karate, when actually they do karate-do. I know my organization, Maxim, is traditional training for the serious student, because we train traditionally, but basically we don't train karate-jitsu. I myself have probably come a little closer to it, because one of the reasons I got into karate was being able to look after myself a little better on the streets in Liverpool, where I drove cabs, which was kind of a hazardous occupation there. So what karate did for me, it added to the arsenal, if you like, or the repertoire of my go-to techniques when I was in a confrontational situation. Now, everybody has go-to techniques, and sometimes they're culturally based, sometimes they're just whatever comes to your mind, or unconscious methods of self-defense that you would use. I think karate gave me a few more ways of applying what I was feeling in a spirit, if you like. So I really like doing karate for that reason. I liked it so much that I did it for the rest of my life. Still doing it. So I think that was the thing that got me about the three different styles of karate. And Mr. Bayer does put it down very well. If you're looking, he's got a couple of books, both on the same subject. A little bit heavy because he's writing it almost as a thesis. So it's not the easiest of reading for the average guy. You're one of these people that just likes to use 5 or 6 big words when he could just maybe use a couple. But the ideas behind it, the ideas he presents behind it, the concepts are quite good and they're worth reading, particularly when it comes to the definition of mastery of a subject, and how, what it got me thinking was a lot of people who are very skillful at skills, they probably never realized that those skills would one day become redundant. And being honest with you, in today's society, probably karate-jitsu is, if not redundant, it's very rarely used. When I'm in my club and I'm talking to people and I say, this got me out of this situation once where I was attacked, and I've been attacked with knives, screwdrivers, all sorts of stuff while I was in Liverpool. And they look at me with astonishment, because some people who've been doing karate with me for 25, 30 years have never, ever been in a confrontation that wasn't, controlled by a referee. They've never been in a real street situation. And so it's kind of hard to put across to people what your attitude is, and trying to explain to them how adrenaline affects your system, how your fine motor skills go out the window and you just go back to what works for you, which is basically major body movements, and survival instinct kicks in. The other thing you can't think about is consequences, because almost universally when I'm talking about self-defense and the situations I've got in, they go, but you can get into trouble for that nowadays. Maybe. But the last thing I'm going to do is tell somebody that, I do karate. You don't have time for that when it's argument and it's gone past the argumentative stage, or it's confrontational stage. You have to recognize the signs, and you have to deal with the intention, and you deal with the intention as fast as you can. So arguments and discussions are all ways of communicating. My belief, violence is a great way of communicating. It's the best way. It's more definitive. I don't say it's the best way, I can't say that. But it is more definitive, and you get your point across a lot quicker. And if you want to win an argument, you have to make your point a lot more relevant than the other guy's point. Make him think about it. Violence does that. Somebody's arguing with you, and it looks like his intention is going a little bit further than arguing, or his demands are getting a little bit more than, can I borrow $5 off you or something like that. Then you have to point out to them how invalid his argument is. And might be the best way of doing that is smack him right in the mouth. That's just my opinion, right? But I'm old, and I say I'm from a different school, and probably the skill that I developed in recognizing people's intentions might now be redundant. I don't think they are, because I can spot trouble a lot quicker. Like, we've been all around the world traveling with my wife in places like all over Europe and Asia, places like this. And you can more or less recognize trouble spots, other trouble situations that other people might not pick up on. And that's just experience. You know, you've kind of seen these situations develop in the past, and you know what's going to happen, and you know how to deal with it. It might be move out the way, get out of there, or if you can't get out of there, you're going to have to confront it to the best of your ability. And that would mean not waiting to be hit and then going, oh, I better block this. To be honest, if you're going to have to block it, you're probably a bit late. And the other thing is, you can't really defend against an unprovoked attack when it comes out of nowhere. Somebody's going to come up behind you and hit you on the back of the head. I don't care how good you are, you're going to get hit on the back of the head. So there's my thoughts on 3 different types of karate. Now, they are the only things that I think are worthy of the name karate. And of course, in this world of business and greed and people climbing on top of each other, you have other styles which are probably commonly referred to as McDojos, you know, fake masters and all this stuff. Unfortunately, they bill themselves as karate, which gives us all pain in the head, and you see them debunked so many times. But it's not only the fake karate people like the McDojos and all that give us a bad name. We also get karate, particularly in the US, where it's turned into a business. It's like the westernization of an art form. It's turned into a business. So the people, like any artist, the people who originally created the art get nothing, and the people who deal in it and peddle it, they make all the money. And a lot of these so-called karate studios down in the States, we've seen them franchised out into large organizations. They'll give you methods of making a business out of it, how to make money, how to market your product. Basically, they're doing what art dealers do, which is ripping off people who created the art, and they did it for their own enjoyment and for the enjoyment, basically, of anybody who wants to appreciate it or even just look at it. They really don't have a right to make that much money from that art, but it's the law of supply and demand, I guess, and there's so many of them around, it's unbelievable. Nothing pleases me more than when I watch a video on YouTube of one of these so-called grandmasters or one-touch technique knockouts getting their butt kicked by, somebody who knows what they're doing. And believe me, there's quite a few people who know what they're doing. And even some people who have never walked in a dojo, never belonged to a martial arts club, can still handle themselves pretty well. And, I always tell my students, everyone is at least your equal until they prove differently. You don't have to let them prove differently. Just treat everybody with respect and consideration and, treat them like they're your equal, at least your equal. If they prove they're better than you in some way, then that's fine. You can show some respect for that. But you have to be confident enough in yourself to believe that you're as good as anybody else too. Okay, so that's it. I hate the fact that the word karate is bandied around like it is. Being honest, sport karate isn't my thing. I'd rather it was called something like martial arts sports or something like that. But it's not. They took the word karate and they've used it as a marketing tool, as of so many others. Hate McDojos, hate phonies, like everybody else in the world. Unfortunately, you have to deal with them. How you deal with them is up to you. Myself, I treat them with scorn and disdain, and I'll insult them whenever I can. Anyway, just thought I would share my thoughts on this mastery thing and about the 3 different kind of branches of karate that may or not be relevant today, but because sports karate is so big, karate-do it's the Japanization, if you like. Don't even know if that's a word, but it's a Japanization of karate. And then you have karate-jitsu, which is the Okinawan roots, which go back way, way further than, of course, than the Shotokan group and the Japan karate. In fact, the word karate didn't come out until, I think, 1936, when they had a conference. It was called Tode and different things before then. Pat McCarthy calls it Tode, but I think there's other groups that call it something else. I guess it would be Shorin-ryu, that would be the oldest style that came out of Okinawa, which is basically still in Okinawa. It didn't really transport itself to Japan. It wasn't really imported in Japan the way that Funakoshi imported his Shotokan. So when you look at it, it's worth thinking about. And if you have any thoughts that, or you'd like to contribute to the discussion, then please feel free to do so. Just my thoughts on it, and hopefully you have some comments and we can share. Be a good discussion to have over a pint in a pub anytime you like. Okay, take care. Bye.